Hi friends, and welcome back into my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a Longarm quilter, and here on my channel I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. So it is January, second week of January here. We've had a couple good snowstorms here in central Indiana. We still have a good amount of snow on the ground, which I'm fine with. You know, I wouldn't mind if we had just a couple inches every week. Get the snow, the roads cleared away. Leave, you know, it can stay cold enough for it to be snow on the in the fields and on the grass, in the yards. It makes everything so much brighter and lighter, and I'm fine with that. We had a few flurries this morning, but now it's the sun is poking out, and I had to close my curtain over there because it was shining in a little bright. But I am loving my sewing room being downstairs, and I have these three big windows. Last week we had, last Friday, I guess I want to say, pretty good amount of snow came down on top of some we already had, but it was just big old snowflakes coming down. I had nowhere to go. I'm in here sewing all day, and just seeing the snow falling all around me, I really liked it. And so I am enjoying my sewing room being downstairs, even in the wintertime. All the beauty, the scenery I get to see from right here, I am really enjoying that. But it may be winter outside, but I've been working on a springtime, summertime quilt recently. This is my Calico garden quilt. If you remember, I finished up this, man, did I finish up last year or the year before? I don't even know. Time is just flying by. But this is a Lori Holt. This was a quilt along. Actually, I have the pattern, so I can tell when the quilt along was. I don't remember if I quite finished it. And I don't even know if the dates are in here, but anyway, I keep it in this big binder. I have both my Calico Garden quilt along in here, as well as my Happy Place quilt along, if you remember that one also. So I will just pop this out of here so that you don't have the glare. But this is what the whole quilt looks like. Calico Garden. This was a sew along. Oh, I have the schedule. January through June. But I honestly don't know if that was 2024 or 2023. I'm going to bet it was 2023. Because it feels like I've had this done for quite a while and just had not done the long arm quilting. So Lori Holt pattern, this is her sew along guide. This is still available for free, either on her website or the Fat Quarter website. I have linked it down below. So if you've not done this and are wanting to do this quilt, absolutely download the free sew along guide. It gives you all of the fabric requirements that you would need for this, and then you would go to Lori's blog, and it gives all the directions on how to put the blocks together. So all of that's still available on her website. So the sew along guide has all, well, let me pop out this one too. So a lot of the fabrics are still available, at least on Fat Quarter Shop, and I think you could piece together this. I bought the kit when we were first doing it, and but when you download the sew along guide, it gives you all of the SKUs. It gives you the number, as well as a photo of what the fabric looks like. So if you have the exact fabrics, fine. If you can get them, fine. If not, then use Lori's latest fabrics, or piece together those colors, because her colors don't change that much. So you could absolutely use other ones. But the sew along guide is free. You can download this, and then what you do need are the Sew Simple shapes, and those are still available. This is how you do all of the applique pieces on here. So this quilt does have pieced blocks. It does have applique blocks as well. The quilt ends up measuring, how big is this one? 90 by 90. It's a nice big size quilt. So all of the star blocks around here, star flowers or whatever Lori called them, those are all pieced blocks. All of these others, almost all of these are appliqued, and then the fence was pieced, the house is pieced, but just about everything else there is all applique. So that's where you need her So Simple shapes. Those are the shapes that that you need to create the applique pieces. Lori does use her own interfacing, which is what you do to trace the shapes onto her interfacing, and then you sew directly from that interfacing. You sew that in. It is not an iron-on interfacing, it is a sew-in interfacing, and then you sew that onto the right side of your shapes, or you sew that onto the right side of your fabrics, and then you flip those shapes inside out, and that gives you the nice round edges like you can see on these blocks. The lettuce blocks, I can't show all of this at once on here, but you can go back to my older videos where I walked you through as I was finishing each one of these blocks. So why I brought it back today is because I have finished the Longarm quilting on it. So I mentioned last week that I was working on this, or I actually had it on the Longarm last week. So let me just pull this in so you can see what I did on it. All right, I pulled it up from the bottom, so hopefully you can see the quilting on this one. This is called Valencia Twist, and this is a pantograph designed by Barbie Mills of the Quilting Mill. She has an Etsy site, and I'll link that down below. So this one, it has this wave that's kind of continuing all the way across the quilt, and then it has a circle here, and it's got the 4-petaled flowers, almost like an orange peel, but not quite. And so your rows alternate. So here's the 4-petal flower, here's the 4-petal flower with the circle in between, and then that wave is what's connecting it all across the quilt there. So a floral, kind of, but I like the texture on this one. I didn't want to do something that was just a meander flower. I really wanted something that has some texture. I didn't do it super tall. It's probably only 2.5 inches tall there. And I used white thread. The Omni Natural White is what I used on that one. And I love the way it turned out. So I just need to finish the binding, and then this will be all ready for my bed in the springtime. I'm super excited. This is one of Lori's wide backs. This is in the denim color. If I can find this, I'll link it down below. It wasn't my first choice. I guess I would have preferred to do something else. But when it came time to put it, I wanted to do this over my break, over the Christmas holiday. And I had a couple of Lori's wide backs, and I chose this one. I had a gray one that didn't match at all to put on with this one. I almost would have rathered a floral or something because it is Calico Garden, but I'm like, I have put this off long enough in quilting it. I just want to get this done. So I used this blue, the denim background. I love this print. I think this would be super cute as project bags or something for cross stitch as well. There's so much detail to this, and looking at the young wife here cooking. I don't know if you can see that. The milk cans, the farm. She's got so much wording on here, whether it's old farm type things or just, I mean, there's so much here. I just love it. And so that's what I chose for the back. So white bobbin as the bobbin thread, Omni Natural White as the top. Again, this is a super fun quilt. I'm glad to have it done. I'm not sure if I'll do a Lori Holt applique one again, just because the arthritis in my fingers is kind of difficult in turning some of these small shapes. Or it could be that the next time she has an applique quilt come out and I can't resist and I kind of forget what, that it gets difficult at times and long at times. But I'm super happy to have this one done, and I just love it. I'll just put the binding on it. It'll be all ready for my bed. I am finishing the Hometown Holiday sampler. Actually, there were a couple blocks I forgot to show you last week. I forgot to bring them down here today, so I'm not going to show you those till next week. But I'm working on that one, and that'll be my Christmas quilt that I can put on over the winter time. And then I am planning on stitching along with the Prairie Home sampler sew along. Fat Quarter Shop has released the fabric requirements. I did find a good deal on the bundles over the Christmas holiday. There were so many good sales. so many good sales over Christmas holiday and the New Year that I did find the B bundle, the limited edition colors, as well as the background. So I have purchased both of those. I already have those, and I'm ready for this quilt along to start. The schedule is out. This is using Lori's Prairie Home book. I'll link that down below. I'll link this sew along guide down, but this is not a sew along guide. This is just your fabric requirements, and then it's the dates of the sew along. So this one will start in April, and this is a whole year long, so it won't finish till next March. For that. I have all of the quilt seeds. I had a friend who finished up using, she made the pumpkin quilt seeds. She made her quilt, and she says, I'm not going to use these patterns again. So she gave me all those patterns. I'm super excited. So I've got all of the fall fabrics for those. I got so much to work on. I'm so excited. But I will be stitching along with this one. So you'll want to get your fabrics for this one and the Prairie Home book if you don't have that yet. And then this one starts in April. Also from the Fat Quarter Shop, if you've not purchased it yet, and if there's some still available, is the Cupid box. Mine is on its way. So I will show you that once it arrives, and I'm super excited about that as well. So love to have this done. I will do the binding and get that on my bed. I thought I need to take some pictures of my bedroom as well, just kind of like a shot from the window or from the doorway, because you remember what's now my bedroom was once my sewing room, so you remember that space, and I absolutely love it. I don't know why we waited so long. I mean, we had all those kids for so many years, and all of their bedrooms were upstairs, and my sewing room was upstairs, and this room was our master bedroom. And when I bought the second long arm, we needed the more space for the long arms, so we swapped rooms, and this became my sewing space. At least my long arm room is what we call it, and then our bedroom was moved upstairs. And I love the quietness. I love the the retreat it feels like, because we were downstairs on the main floor for 24 years. I mean, we've been in this house 25 years come April, and so for 24, it's only been the last year that we've moved our bedroom upstairs. So for 24 years our bedroom was on the main level, and I'm loving it being upstairs. I love the view walking up the stairs and looking at our bed right there in front of the window. And so when I get some of the quilt that's on our bed right now is the one that's been on there. It's one of the first quilts I made. It was that porch swing quilt, browns and reds, and I absolutely love it, but it's been on there for a very long time. So I'll be excited to put this one on once springtime comes, and at some point I'll do just a shot from our room and looking out over the back field, and I just love it. So excited to get that one done. And let me now transition. I'll show you some other blocks I've been working on this week. All right, I mentioned last week that I had block number 9 of the Pieceful Baskets. The pattern came in my Sew Sampler box for December, and I realized I'd never done block 8. So that's what I've been working on. I finished those up this week, so let me show you those. So this is block number 8. The Pieceful Baskets. This is the quilt along that's going along with the Sew Sampler box. So each month when I receive my box, I receive the next pattern. And so this one has a name. What's the name of this one? This one is called the Goose Chase Basket Block. And this uses Camille Roskelley's line Shoreline, Camille Roskelley's fabric called Shoreline. Each one of the baskets is the same shape. It always has this green, I don't know what you'd call it. It's like the fabric that's coming out of the basket. That's what I think of it as, is like a doily or something coming out of the basket. Is doily a Midwestern term? I don't know. Doily usually means something knitted or crocheted, and it's like a white. It doesn't have to be knitted or crocheted. It could be fabric with kind of like lace around it, but it's usually something you put on your table or laying out over a basket. I don't know. Is that a Midwestern term? I'm not sure. But the fabric that's like falling out of the basket, and then you have your other things here. Now, this was a lot of pieces. This one took me quite a while to make. A lot of pieces to this part here. So you're making this inner square first. And very interesting, you're making these these are flying geese units here. This piece right here, you can see that one, you're actually making hourglass units. So the pattern tells you to cut your pieces into, it tells you to cut these pieces into fourths and this piece into half. I don't do it that way. I cut the block the same size that it says in the directions, but then I layer my blue and my white, and I sew on 1/4 inch on either side of that diagonal. Then yeah, and then when you cut that apart, you have this. So I have a half square triangle block of the blue and the white. Then I layered that with this green print, and then sewed 1/4 inch away from that diagonal on that. And then when I open that up, I have this one and I have this one. So actually when you do it, because you're doing that, on one of them your blue is going to be on the left and the other one your blue is going to be on the right, which is what I needed for this block. So I only had to do this once, layer it once and sew on either side of that diagonal, and I get one block going one way, one block going the other way. If both of the blocks had needed the blue on the same side, I would have had to do this twice, because when you do this, you're going to get, you're going to get mirror images of each other. So if you're doing that for a quilt where you need the blues always on the left, it may not be the best way to do your blocks, because you're going to have all of the ones where the blue is on the right. But that's the way I do them. I don't like to stitch on that bias seam if I don't have to, and I just don't feel that there's a need to do it on these, when you can leave those blocks together, leave those cut squares together, and just do your piecing, do your seaming first, and do your stitching first, and then cut it apart. The other interesting block on this was this one right here. So on, I believe it was last week, I was showing you some Lori Holt blocks for the Hometown Holiday Sampler, that very similar, where Lori has you do a 4-patch, or has you do like a white block, a blue block, and then a full blue rectangle on this side, and then you add your easy corner triangles where you would add a white here, and a white here to get that that block. So can you see the one I'm talking about right there? Almost looks like a crown or something. This one was interesting, and there's many ways to get the same blocks, but this one was done totally different. Instead, the directions for this had you create this flying geese unit right here. Do you see that one? It's the same as this one, same as this one. So they had you make 5 flying geese units. Then that flying geese unit is attached to a half square triangle unit here with the blue and the white on one side that you create ahead of time. And then you piece that with the white square here, and those two then are attached to this flying geese unit. So Lori Holt is one of those that she doesn't like to do these half square triangle units, so she would have you join the 2 squares and then put the half square triangle, or then put the easy corner triangle over here and flip it back. So just you're making the same block, it's just different approaches. So not that one's better than the other. Oops, about dropped everything on the floor. Not that one way is better than the other. It may just come down to what's your preference. What do you prefer? Do you like making flying geese units? Then you may like to make your units like this. You don't like to make flying geese units. Maybe you prefer to do the 4-patch, or at least the white and the blue with the long rectangle here, and then adding easy corner triangles on it. So different ways to make different blocks. I think it's best to, I made it exactly the way the directions said on this one. I could go back and do it. I could have done it the way Lori Holt showed, and that I did it on the Hometown Holiday Sampler quilt. It would have been perfect. Going forward then, if I see this block in something else, I can think, oh, maybe I would rather do this as a 4-patch, or the 3-patch, and then just add the easy corner triangles. So the more you work with quilt patterns, if you're newer, I would stick with what the directions say. The longer you work with quilt patterns, you can see that certain designers like to do certain blocks one way, certain designers like to do blocks the other way. The end result is the same. So as long as your math is correct and the piecing is correct, like this one, I didn't have to cut it any different from what the directions said. My process of getting the block done was a little different. So So work with it, you know, as you get some experience, then you can change up how the blocks are done and you still get the same result. So this is block number 8. I did want to show you, I have to show you something I got. So doing some thrifting. I want to say this was before Maggie's wedding. The girls and I all got together for a coffee date and then doing some antique shopping. And when we were in an antique store, I found these old flannel board numbers. And I'm like, when I saw them, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but these are too cute to pass up. You know, I love numbers like this. I love flannel graph, so I picked these up. And so these have been in my sewing room, not sure what I was going to do with them. So I was working on these 2 blocks and I had Pieceful Baskets. I had block 8 and I had block 9. And I wanted to cut all the pieces for both at the same time because a lot of them, at least all of the fabrics around the edge, these blocks are different. The green is the same in each one, but the white background print is the same for both of them. So I wanted to cut everything at the same time, and I'm like, how am I going to keep these, how am I going to remember which is which? Because I had my boards laid out there. So I had 2 boards laid out, and I was putting pieces on both of them, and then I remember those flannel graph. So I picked up an 8, and it sticks to my board just perfect. So I picked up an 8 and put that down for my block number 8. And then here's my block number 9. I'll show you details of this one in just a second. I love it. I love it. The flannel graph just sticks right there on my design boards, and it was perfect. Then I knew all the pieces on this board were for block number 8. I knew I'd find a use for those flannel graph numbers, and I just love it. So some of my pieces left over from block number 8. All those flying geese units mean that I have those 2 little pieces on the back of the flying geese that you cut away. And so I pieced those together and made some cute little pinwheels. So these will go in my little orphan basket on my ironing table that I make those little pinwheels. There's some more left, and I'll be making a few more. I just went ahead and pieced a couple of them for you to see. Some of these others were pieces that were cut away from different parts of the block. So here's the block. So I do have a half square triangle block left over, and I've been saving any orphan pieces like this with all of my fabrics for the Pieceful Basket, because once I get done, I may be able to use the same line for something else and use some of these orphan blocks. I have another half square triangle block here. This piece is cut away from the basket part. Now, if I need just, I went ahead and seamed this one. Again, I stitched inside where I was, because you're folding back that block, that piece of fabric, the blue. You stitch on the blue onto the white, and then you fold that back. So I just did an extra stitch, so when I cut those 2 pieces away, this is already stitched together. So I could have a very large half square triangle block. If I need a 2.5 or a 3-inch square, whatever this is, for another one of the blocks in the quilt, I can go ahead and use this fabric for that, and I might. But I did stitch that so that that came off as a half square triangle, and then this one too. So these are just some of the extra pieces, but definitely the pinwheels made from just cutting those extras off the back of the flying geese unit. So really like that one. So let me show you block number 9. This is the one that came last week in the Sew Sampler box. This one, piecing much simpler on this one, a lot larger pieces in here. So this one is called the Windmill Basket, and pretty easy. These were half square triangles. You can see half square triangle, half square triangle, half square triangle. That's all these were. And then piecing those together. The basket is the light blue with the white polka dots on it, which is the same as the background fabric of the entire quilt is the white on white polka dots. So this is the same print, just done in the blue. And there is block number 9. So fun working through that one. So that is what I worked on this week between my long arm quilting and the Pieceful Baskets. And like I said, I did finish up some other hometown holiday blocks, but I forgot to bring those down, just a couple of them. So I will work on more of those this week and show you those next week. So that is the personal sewing that I did for this week. I did have a couple of quilts that I sent home before Christmas, but I didn't film them prior to sending them back. You know, the rush of the holidays, I needed to get those out to the customers and didn't sit down to take some time to film those ahead of time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you one of those quilts in pictures like I normally do, and then I'll come back and I'll just talk about the quilt. Even though I don't have it with me, I'll talk about it and insert some other pictures so you can see some close-ups there. So let's start with DeeDee's quilt. All right, so this is DeeDee's quilt, and DeeDee created this quilt using a pattern from Kaffe Fassett in his book Quilts in Wales, and I've linked that down below. This quilt pattern that's in the book is called Bubbly. Wales, I don't know, so Bubbly, I would pronounce it Bubbly. So here is what the whole quilt looks like. So from what DeeDee told me, this is stitched in rows, but it's nothing. You're not using the bias cuts on anything. So you're cutting your squares, and then you're stitching them into rows, and then you're setting that on point by adding those the outer triangles. If you can see that. Okay, so most of it is just squares stitched that way, and then it's just the corners that you're adding, and then it looks like then it's set on point is that direction. So the fabrics that she used, variety of fabrics that she had in her stash. Some of them are Tula pink. She likes the bright pinks and the yellows. This is made as a wedding gift for a relative, I guess, I don't know, but made as a wedding gift. It measures 83 by 85, so basically square here, and using all fabrics from her stash, and like I said, some Tula pink. The raccoon ones are Tula pink. There may be others in there as well. So each, as you're creating those squares, so this has to be laid out ahead of time, you know, so that you get each one of those almost like an around the world, a trip around the world type of effect. But you want to lay out your piecing in your squares, because that's how you're getting that concentric, is that the right word, effect of the fabrics going out. So starting with pinks in the middle, and then she's done a nice job of the contrast between each of the successive rows around there. So pinks, and then the whites, and then the dark, then the yellows, and then a little more of a rosy, and then again going towards the bluish green and the white. So I love the mustardy yellow color in there. Because we had a lot of yellows in there, DeeDee did ask if I would use a yellow thread. So I did use Omni. This is Lemon Cream is the name of that one. So it did, it's just like it says, lemon cream, just a pale yellow on the quilt top. I did use a cream color in the bobbin because you're not going to notice that it's not yellow on the back. So that's what I used. For the pantograph, we used Bubble Flower. And I like that this is a touch towards modern. Still a little bit of a floral theme, but a hint towards modern. It stitches out. You've got that one row that's going straight across, and then you're having the circles that create that bubble type flower on this one. And so love the way this stitched out. It looks really pretty on this one. She said the bride was thrilled with the quilt that she received, and so DeeDee did a great job on this one. I did want to make just a slight comment on this one about because you have that straight line. This was one thing that DeeDee and I noticed afterwards, that I didn't think with this quilt that the straight line would be that big of a deal, but because we have those square shapes, there is you do have that distinct. What I want to say, I mean, you have the straight line going across here. If it's not kept straight, might be noticeable. And on this one, it was a little bit noticeable when it got off of being straight across that quilt. So just be careful in choosing this pantograph that either you've got to keep your lines very straight. And again, with this one, I wasn't thinking that with this quilt because it was all set on point. I wasn't thinking about keeping that line straight through those points. And so you may notice on this one that it was a little off in some areas as you move across the quilt. So just be aware of that if you're stitching this pantograph. If it's a quilt top that doesn't necessarily have a lot of, that you're not going to notice that straight line in contrast with the piecing, then it'll be perfect. If it's one that is a little fussier, you're going to make sure that you've got that straight line in coordination with your quilt top. You may have to stick some batting behind your bars to make sure we have that perfectly straight. So just a hint of warning there as you're stitching this out. And like DeeDee said, I don't know, as a quilter, you may notice that it's not quite straight. As a non-quilter, I don't know that somebody else would notice that, but we did want to make that comment and just point it out, to be careful in stitching this one out if you're doing it on a quilt top that definitely has some straight lines where you may notice the difference if it's not quite lined up. So that is DeeDee's quilt, and it turned out so nicely. I know she's already gifted that, and the bride was thrilled with it. So such a nice job, DeeDee, and thank you for letting me quilt it for you. So I also have a quilt by Deb that has already gone home. This is just a small wall hanging, but let me show you this one and then we'll talk about it. So this is Deb's small wall hanging. It could be a wall hanging. It could also be like a pillow front maybe. But we quilted this one. This is very small. It fit within my throat space. I didn't write down the dimensions of it, so I'm not quite sure. Deb did mention that this was a kit that she received, and so sometimes when a designer will put together a kit like this, they will not give you enough backing fabric for a long arm quilter. As you know, I've probably mentioned before, or you've seen my long arm quilting prep instructions, I need at least 4 inches larger on every side, larger than the quilt top itself. And the reason for that is we're attaching the backing to quilt bars, and so we need that extra space along the edge of the backing to either pin it or to use magnets or red snappers like I do. But you also have to give your machine, you don't want your machine stitching right up to where those pins are or to where those red snappers are. And so besides the amount of the backing fabric that is pinned to the leaders, you also need some clearance for that machine not to be too close to those pins. So that's why we ask for 4 inches larger on every side. So sometimes when you get a small kit like this, the designer's not going to include enough backing fabric for that. Usually the backing should be bigger than the project that you're making. Even for normal, if you're even doing hand quilting or quilting on your domestic machine, I would still encourage you to have the backing larger than what you're working on and then trim it off later. But for a long armor, I understand you need it larger for sometimes. But that backing fabric is still usable. What you can do is on like a project like this, if let's say it measured 12 inches square, then I need that backing fabric at least 16, I would need it If it's 12 by 12, I would need your project to be, your backing fabric to be 20 by 20. That would give me 4 inches on every side, okay? Now, if the backing fabric that they included with the kit is only 16 by 16, or perhaps it's a 14 by 14, and then this is, your project is 12 by 12, just add some extra fabric around that edge. It doesn't even have to match, as long as your Longarm quilter, or me, I'm talking, you know, my personal experience, as long as your project, so if your project is 12 by 12, you have a backing fabric that's 14 by 14, just add some extra fabric around that I have enough clearance that I can attach that to the leader bars. I will still center your quilt project within that 14 by 14 of the backing fabric that was included in your kit. I really just need that extra fabric that ensures that I can have room to attach it onto the bars and have some space for my machine not to get too close to those pins or the red snappers. But I can still center it within that backing fabric that was sent with the project. I just need that extra on there to be able to have the clearance for the machine. So for this quilt, we were still able to use the backing fabric that was sent, and I think from what I remember, Deb just included some extras around the edge, and then that's all trimmed off, and when you finish, you're still going to have just the backing fabric that was meant for that project. So that's how we handle that. The pantograph for this one is Midnight Sparkle. I love this one. And again, I've tried many different snowflake pantographs, and just the detailed snowflake ones are just not my favorite, but I like this Midnight Sparkle, and then it has that snowflake effect, but it's really just an X and a cross. I did that backwards. An X and a cross, and that creates just a little bit of a heaviness because you're overstitching a couple times. It creates just a little bit of extra thread right there, which kind of emphasizes that snowflake, and then you have the meander and the swirls out from that. But I like the simplicity of this one, and it still gives that snowflake effect, still gives that like wind flowing kind of effect for these winter type of projects without having all the intricacy of a snowflake. I'm just not a big fan, and I tried another one recently, and it works, but personally just not always my favorite. So I really like this Midnight Sparkle. We did use a white thread on this one. The backing fabric, the background fabric around that tree is a white, and with the plaid fabric around there too, just the white worked well. It kept it light and bright and cheery and Christmassy, and so it really worked well. So that is Deb's wall hanging, and just love it, Deb. You did a great job. All right, so let's move on to some other customer quilts for today. This quilt is Anne's, and this is a baby quilt measuring 40 by 47. The fabrics that she has used on these, unfortunately, I cannot find any longer. She says she purchased them from Missouri Star, and when I go on there and look, it says out of stock forever. So perhaps they're somewhere else, but at least on Missouri Star where she purchased them, I'm no longer able to get them. But the bright ones are called Fun Brights. This is a fat quarter bundle. Really cute because it looks like the length of the fat quarter bundle, you know, the fat quarter is used for the rectangles here, and then just a little bit for the coordinating square on the other side. The long vertical strip offset down, or offset on the quilt, not down the middle is what I'm trying to say. The solid color fabrics are called Continuum Blender. This was also a fat quarter bundle done by Fabric Editions, and as far as I can tell on Missouri Star website, it's no longer available either. But the quilt pattern is a free tutorial on Pinterest. It was posted by Rachel Zapun, Z-A-P-U-N, and I've linked that pin down below, but I'm not able to find the free tutorial. So if anyone is able to find that tutorial and give me a heads up of where we can find that, that would be great, because I'm sure people are going to be interested in doing this quilt for themselves. So just really cute. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 horizontal features to this, alternating between the bright colors and then a coordinating solid. It's not a total solid. There's it's a tone on tone on the solid colors. So in close, you can see that there's just kind of meandering lines all over the place, kind of very random. And you really don't see that until you get in close. But let me show you the back of this as well, because she did piece the back. And this is really cute. So she did some longer strips. Not super long, I mean maybe 10 inches long. So if it was a fat quarter bundle, you know, she's using part of that. And just different pieces from it so that she's using up that entire fat quarter bundle. She's got a couple places where she pieced a little longer to make it long enough to fit that, and then she again offset this piece of that, and I really like that feature, so it's not directly down the middle. Offset it just a tad. I mean, this side over here is just a little bit larger than the fabric yardage on the other side, but a great feature, really interesting. It breaks up the fabric. It's a very busy fabric, and it kind of breaks that up and gives your eye a place to rest when you're looking at the backing. So on the front, I think you can see the pantograph a little better. We did malachite with this one. Malachite looks like, let me get it in close so you can see. Malachite kind of looks like rippling water all over. A great texture builder. It works great on a lot of quilts. A lot of times I use it on baby quilts or water themed quilts or things like that, but it really could be a good texture on just about anything. This one is fairly small because it's a baby quilt, because of the just the features of this quilt. I felt like it needed a little smaller, so it creates great texture. I did use the Omni Natural White on this one. All of the background fabrics that you see are white. This quilt is very bright, very lively, so I felt like the white thread just kept it that light, lively feel to it. So great texture with the malachite. Great for a beginner digital pantograph stitcher, because it nests up well in the row below it and above it. No fussy points to match or anything, so it really works well for that. So Anne's quilt is so cute. I know she was making this for a new baby. I can't remember if it was a great grandbaby or a grandbaby, but they'll be super excited to begin using that. So great job, Anne. I have 4 quilts by Christine, and we're going to start with this one right here. A lot of her quilts that she's done today are original patterns, which I think is really fun. So this one she calls her Pinwheel Quilt, and let me find my information on that one real quick. I pulled the wrong one out. All right, so she calls this one her Pinwheel Quilt. This is an original design. The fabric line is 5-inch squares. She said she got hers from quiltcomfort.com, and then she has used a Moda black for the background fabric. This, your favorite charm pack is what you could use for this. Now I like that she has paired what appears to be a solid. It's actually not. It's got lines on it, kind of like a grunge, but more planned. It looks like lines. And so she has paired one of those solid looking colors with then a very bright fabric next to it. So the purples and the pinks and the blues. When she laid this out, she also did it in rows, and you can see that from the pictures that I showed up first. She starts with the blue down here in the very bottom, and then we've got a diagonal line of pinks, a diagonal line of purples, and then of a little bit lighter pinks, and then a long one of the blues with the red, if you can see that, and then the pinks, and I love how she's done that diagonal print. This quilt measures, it's pretty square, 76 by 76. I say pretty square. On here it says 77 by 76, but that would be pretty square, right? But you can use your favorite charm packs for these. And so these are you're starting with 5-inch squares, and you're creating half square triangle units. So, and all you need is 2 of the purple prints and 2 of the colored prints in 5-inch squares. So two 5-inch squares of each one. So 2 purple ones, 2 of the colored print. You stitch on either a 1/4 inch away from either side of that diagonal, and you're creating 2 with each set, and then you set that into a pinwheel design. Now, she said this was her original creation, so she has decided on the size. She actually, instead of sashing, she has actually, let me see here. So what she did is a black strip on either side of the blocks, then joined them in rows, and then did a long sashing in the horizontal. So this is not a wide sashing per se. This is a little strip of black on either side, and then the horizontal ones are long pieces of sashing. Now, I did look for a pinwheel pattern for you, because I know a lot of times some of you don't like doing original things. You would prefer to follow a pattern, and I totally understand that. So I did find a free PDF. This is a pattern called Playtime Pinwheels. This is on, designed by Ariga. I'm not sure how you say that. Ariga Wilson for Robert Kaufman. This is available on the Fat Quarter Shop, and I have linked it down below. So this is a pinwheel pattern. This measures 55 by 62. Now you'll notice these pinwheels are just a tad bit different, where Christine has just created the 4 blocks and put them together in a pinwheel fashion. This pattern shows you how to, these almost look like those pinwheels that you would blow a little bit more, because they have the extra little tails. And so this pattern shows you how to create those, the size blocks that you need. If you don't want those extra tails on your pinwheels, then you would just create the 4-patch block right here in the middle, and then just do your sashing. You wouldn't need this extra blocks, but that's a fun pattern as well. You have those the wings on each of the pinwheels, and this pattern will show you how to do it. Again, this one measures 55 by 62. Obviously, you can make it any size you want, because all of the pinwheels, well, this one does a small pinwheel and a large pinwheel, and then alternates those, but you could stop at any point. You know, you could have it goes large, small, large, small, large, small. So it's 6 across, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is 6 across and 6 down, but the sashing, it looks like, in between the rows is a little larger than that. So it's not square. And then it adds borders on top, which Christine's quilt, she did add black borders. Let me pull it up. She did add the black borders, but because it's all the same, it just makes the quilt larger. You really don't see the borders. It just gives your eye a place to rest before moving off to the back, to the edges of those quilts. This would be really pretty with a scrappy binding all the way around with these bright colors. It'd be really pretty. But I will link this free PDF down below if you're needing help with pinwheel blocks or a pattern to use. But any charm pack that you have, any 5-inch squares, pair them together, half square triangle units, and pair those together in a group of 4, and you have your pinwheel pattern. So let's talk about pantograph on this one. This is called Hopscotch. Did this in a light gray thread because of the black fabric, it really shows up. It almost reads like a white, but if you use white on this, it would be even brighter. So this is a light gray. We didn't want to overpower the colored prints here, or you could have gone with a darker gray, you know, like a medium gray, but I just chose the light gray on this one. I like to see the quilting on this one, and Christine wasn't afraid of that either. So showing the quilting. So this is hopscotch, and if you remember before, pantographs like wishbone that just goes up and does a loop, comes down and does a loop, up and does a loop. This is that same concept. Ice cream, or the two scoops is very similar to that, where it comes up but it gives you a rounded, you know, a straight and then a rounded, almost like an ice cream cone. So this is the same concept in that we come up and we do there is a diamond and then a circle. So it works down either side. It comes up, does half the diamond, does the circle, does the other half of the diamond, and then comes down, does the diamond, the circle, the other side of the diamond, and back up. So it's working just the same way as a wishbone, but it's different shapes in there. And I love this. I love it because there's no exact points to match up, but it certainly feels like it when you look at the pantograph. But they nest in up into the row above it. So this row is ending right here. The next row is starting way up here. You can decrease this. I mean, I like my circle to come all the way up into the negative space of the row above it. You could have this a lot farther apart, have your circles in a row, or the circles not even touch each other. You would have a totally different design. To get this effect where I nest this up into the row above it, you do have to offset the pantograph by half, if I remember right, so that this line is half over from the row above it, and then you can decrease that space between the rows so that they go up into each other. Really like this. I think it's just really pretty. Makes this quilt really fun. You fill in all of that. You're using the negative space, where a lot of times we think of negative space in the light fabrics. This is negative space in the dark fabrics, but it really fills in all of that negative space with quilting, and it's just so fun. It creates such a neat effect on this whole quilt. The backing fabric, this one is called Crescent. This is from Blank Quilting, 108-inch wide backing. I love the bright blue color. It keeps it light and fun, where we have, you know, a lot of the dark black on the front, which is really pretty, but this kind of lightens it up. Instead of keeping the black on the back as well, it would keep it kind of a dark quilt. This just makes it light and playful, and I think that's the whole theme of the quilt that Christine was wanting, because the pantographs that she suggested and this hopscotch, I just think added a lot of funness, whatever. It added a lot of character to this quilt. Because with the half square triangles, you've got those triangle pieces, you've got a pinwheel shape, and so adding a different shape, but kind of in that same diagonal feel to it, with some circles in there as well. I like the addition of the circles and not just straight lines, but really gives a lot of great definition and great texture to this quilt. So really like that. All right, that is Christine's first quilt, and we'll move on to the second one. Christine's second quilt is a crazy quilt, and she said she used Lori Holt's crazy paper to create this. She used the 10-inch squares of paper. Lori has done 5-inch squares and 10-inch squares so that you can use this with layer cakes or charm packs, either one. So Christine used the 10-inch one. The fabric line, she says, was an unknown layer cake and additional scraps that she had. So batiks, a little bit of metallic type look in some of the butterfly prints, and some of this print over here, just a tad bit of metallic, but purples and aquas, some pinks and rosy colors thrown in here, and So using the crazy paper, you can make your own crazy quilt. And also Lori Holt has layouts, and this is again a free PDF on the Fat Quarter Shop, and I will link this down below. So if you're wanting to make a crib size quilt, it tells you how many blocks, how many papers, how many 10-inch squares you need if you're wanting to make a table runner, or if you're wanting to make a lap size quilt. This one measures 48 by 56, and Christine's is just a tad bit larger than that, but pretty close. But this is a free PDF, so you can get all the layouts that you need, gives you all the yardage that you need, and shows you how to lay it out. So that is really fun. Oh, there's even a twin size. I missed that one. That's the second page, is a 64 by 88, so a crazy quilt. So again, use your favorite charm pack, your favorite layer cake, or if you've got some of those pre-cuts laying around your sewing room and you don't know what to do with them, get the crazy paper from Lori Holt. So this is foundation paper piecing, where you are, but it's done with a layer cake. So I'm not exactly sure. Because traditional foundation paper, you sew part of it. So I'm wondering if you sew it, and then I don't know. I've not done it before. So it's foundation paper so that you get the perfect blocks, the perfect shapes, and all of that. So you'll want to check that out if you want to make a crazy quilt for yourself. The backing fabric is a purple. Seeing lots of lint on this. Sorry about that. The purple, let me tell you, is from Blank Quilting. This is called Urban Legend, and it's in the purple. When I looked, they didn't have the purple left, but they've got lots of other colors if you're wanting a different color of backing. Again, a wide backing, so perfect for your quilting. So the pantograph you can see on this one, this is called Lake Ridge Puddles, and I love the look of this. It really gives this 3D effect that makes it feel like the puddles are just going back in space, and I just don't know how that's done, because it's all just right here, but it just really gives the feel that these puddles are laid out in front of you on a road or a street or something. So I did use light gray thread on this one. With the colors on the front, you're really not going to see a thread. So a cream would have worked well. The light gray worked well. A white probably would have worked well. It was the backing fabric that really made me decide on the light gray, because I didn't want the cream or the white to stand out too much. You are going to see it because this is a solid color. I didn't want to go any darker than the light gray because my colors on the front are a lighter color. So this gray works as a neutral. It works as a lighter color on the backing fabric, but really blends in with the front, and that's why I'm showing you the pantograph on the back. So just it swirls in, makes your puddle, has just a tad bit of a point, and then swirls out, does a puddle down here, swirls out, does a puddle down here, and then it works itself back up. So almost like in an S type shape, and then it works itself back up for the next section and back down, and that is just really cute. So Christine said she wanted a bit more of a modern feel with this one, but also adding in some circular movement with all the straightness on the front of the crazy quilt. So that one is super cute and just love it. Christine's third quilt is an again original design that she has done. She has used the fabric line called Party Cats and put it in the center of each block. Now you'll notice these are a bit, they're not straight, they're a bit tipped. And she says this is an original pattern. I do remember I had a book at one time that was t-shirt quilts, and that it had this type of design here where you had your t-shirts tipped a little bit. I made a DePaul University quilt one time using this tipped fashion right here. I'll look and see if I still have that book in my sewing room and link it down below if it's even still available. That's been many years ago. But to do this tip design, you do have to have different pieces. And I do remember it being just a tad bit tricky on how you layer your pieces. Maybe she did this with foundation paper. Maybe that's how it's done nowadays, because I know I made that quilt before foundation paper was a thing, or at least before I knew about it. So each one is tipped a little bit. The fabrics that she has used around each one of the Party Cat blocks is called Shadow Play, and that is by Maywood Studios. So you can see it comes in all different colors. And what's so fun is it kind of, each Party Cat block, the colors of the sunglasses and the hats, or the bow ties and things, the colors in that block pop out depending on what color is around it. So like right here, this one has a red border around it, so the red bow tie and the red necktie pop out on that one. And it's all the same fabric. All the Party Cat is the same fabric, and just, you know, cut in different pieces of it. But here we have purple, so you have like the purple tiara popping out a little bit more, the purple sunglasses. Here's blue, so suddenly we have the blue crown on this cat popping out, and the blue sunglasses down here. So it's really fun, because just depending on the color you put around the block, it kind of changes what your eye is drawn to inside that block. She did a small black border around the edge, and then the two fabrics that she has used in the border, these are both Jason Yenter prints. I like what she's done here in that she chose two very similar lines, but this one, you'll notice the starburst on here are just a tad bit smaller, and then here it's very similar line or fabric, but this one is much larger, a little bit more color you see in that one, where this one tends to be more of the white color that you see. So these lines by Jason Yenter are Colorful Bloom and Colorful Burst. So I have linked those down below for you as well. And then Black Kona, or your favorite solid that you like to use. The backing fabric on this one, this is a white. This is a tone on tone, so a white. This is also from Blank Quilting. This one is called Prismatic, and it is 108 inch wide. So it might be hard for you to see the tone on tone, but it's got prisms or diamonds that kind of echo around themselves and then set on point a little bit. Not super straight lines, kind of hand drawn or hand painted is kind of what it looks like, but just a tone on tone. So the thread color we used on this one is the white, because we had a white backing fabric. I didn't want to put color on the back of this one. And the front is so busy with color that the white on the front is not going to be that noticeable. So the pantograph we used on this one is called Rock and Roll Petite. So the circles, they're larger circles and smaller circles, medium-sized circles, and they're just really following, if you can picture a wave going across the quilt like this, then you have circles above it, circles below it, above it, in different sizes on either side of that wave. And then I nested it up so the circles of the row below it are coming up pretty close to the circles in the row above. And just stitch that out. Didn't make this super small. You could have gone smaller, I guess, but there's so much to look at on this quilt. I didn't want to create too much texture where then you're competing with the fabrics that you're looking at and the texture of the quilt. Where like the first one I showed you, the pinwheel blocks, there was so much black around in the negative space that I could make that design a little tighter. The fabrics, you're looking at more the color and not necessarily what's on those fabrics. And so I can make that pantograph a little denser, because I don't feel like the pantograph is competing with the fabrics in that quilt. Where this one, I didn't want to make those the design so small that I feel like we're competing between the texture that I'm adding with the quilting and the fabrics that you're looking at here, because this is almost kind of like an I Spy quilt, where you're wanting to see the different cats and look at them, and there's just so much going on that I didn't want to compete. So I left this design a little larger. These circles, you know, I don't know, maybe 3 inches diameter, maybe 1 inch diameter. On some of the smaller ones, maybe 1.5 inches, but a little larger there. So This quilt measures 72 wide by 69 long, so it's just a tad bit wider than it is long, and just super, super cute. And Christine's last quilt is also an original design. She said she just used rectangles from all the black and white scraps that she had. And wow, she must like black and white. This, living in Indiana, this reminds me of Indy 500, just all of the black and white. Around here, May is the time that everybody decorates in black and white. You know, most people, I guess, are decorating for Memorial Day in May, and we do have that here, but a lot of people will decorate with black and white flags, black and white bunting, all of that for the Indy 500, which is really fun. So original design, she's just got squares. These kind of look like just, they could be charm packs just cut in half, so maybe 2.5 by 5. Or 2.5 by 5.5, or 2.5 by 5, and then joined together, all different kinds of prints. I did link down below a wide variety of black and white prints if you're wanting to increase your stash in that area, and just joined them in rows. She did a really nice job piecing, because that's not always real easy, especially with all of those prints and all those different. She's done a nice job of laying it out really nicely, so that there's a lot to look at, but she's done a nice job of interchanging the design, so not everything is congregated, and she's laid it out really nicely. The backing fabric she chose on this one is an ombre, and this one is ombre confetti, and this is in the onyx color. Now the ombre, what that means is it starts out with a darker on one end, it moves to a lighter, and then back to the darker on the other end. So this one does have, you can see it does get darker. The size of this quilt was 86 long. This is 108-inch wide. So we are able to get the darker part of the ombre on both ends of the quilt, which is nice. And then you have that light part in the middle. But the confetti then means that we have these circle dots all the way through it. What's really fun is in this line, they've gone in the center part where it's lighter, they've done less dots. And then when you get towards the bottom or the top, depending on which way, notice how you have a lot more confetti on one direction and the other. So it really increases throughout the quilt, which is really fun. And this comes in a multitude of colorways as well. Whatever color you need to pack your quilt, you could find it. Let me stay back here, because this is where I think you can see the pantograph the best. So we wanted to do something simple. The front is so busy, really don't want to compete with any other lines, any other design at all. Wanted to keep something simple, but something that would complement it. And so we went with Good Vibrations. All that is a wave across the quilt. Now you can change this up using your height and using your width, or keeping your dimensions locked so that the proportion of height to width is the same. That's what I have done. I locked the feature so that, and then I changed my height because I wanted these an inch apart. So when I do that, I lock the dimensions. No, I lock the proportions is what I want to say. And then I decrease my height to 1 inch, and then it gets those 1 inch apart. But it is a nice wave feel throughout this. You could change the height, you could change the width, play around with that. You can get lots of different designs just playing around with those dimensions, and whether you lock the proportional part of it or not, you get a whole different feel to it. Did use a light gray thread on this one. Blends well with the front with all of the black and white, and looks good here on the back. You're going to notice it a little bit more on the darker parts of the back and a little less on the middle parts there. So Good Vibrations is one of these that is set up to do one row at a time. And I know there's a way of locking the rows and swapping the designs so that it would stitch out one row this way and one row back and one row this way and one way back. I have not taken the time to figure that out on Pro Stitcher. I probably should, because with a quilt like this I did have to stand and it would do one row all the way across, and then I had to bring the machine back and it would do one row from left to right and I'd have to bring the machine back. So if you can find those designs that are the extended width where they have it programmed to do a large number of rows, that saves you so much more time. I just haven't taken the time to, you know, so it can either be programmed that way from the beginning, or I know there's a way to swap the rows and do it. I just have not advanced my skills to that point. The computer side of it where I can do that. I've done there's other ones that I have that are not uniform uniform wave, but there's one that's there's Good Vibrations that is called Good Vibrations Offset, and I've purchased that more recently, and I know that one is set up where it does left to right and right to left. So it could be that I just need to update the pantograph that I have. This Good Vibrations is one that I've had for several years, and so perhaps they've updated this one too. I don't know, but something you'll want to look into. And but it would be nice if it went both directions, and so far I have not had any trouble with my machine going both directions. I think nowadays they've kind of tweaked those parts of the long arms. There was a time where it was a little more difficult to go right to left, and I think those things have kind of been worked out for the most part, but you know, but you can try it on your machine. If you've not done it before, I would test it before putting on a quilt that you're really concerned about, because you may end up picking out stuff, or be until you've adjusted you know, how well it does that, because a lot of times, sometimes probably the biggest problem that I remember is the thread would break going from right to left, but I don't have that trouble anymore. But with this pantograph it didn't matter, because I was taking it back and forth doing the left to right. So all right, that is Christine's fourth quilt, and these are all ready to go home. So thank you for joining me today. I always appreciate you spending time with me each week, and I will be back next week, because every quilt is worth finishing. We'll see you then.